Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Empowered Conversations. I am through the roof excited to speak with my very special guest and friend, Javon Frazier, today. But first, I wanted to share some statistics. So the subject that we are talking about is a very sensitive subject. And we're talking about sexual assault and rape, toxic sexuality, toxic masculinity, rape culture in general, and what breeds that, and how that exists among us. And the statistics, it says more than 1 in 3 women experienced sexual violence involving physical contact during her lifetime. 1 in 5 women have experienced completed or attempted rape during her lifetime. 1 in 3 female rape victims experienced it for the first time between 11 and 17. And 1 in 8 rape victims reported that it occurred before age 10. So I will tell you a little bit about my very special guest, Javon Frazier. She's a survivor of childhood sexual trauma. Javon uses her spirituality, knowledge, and studies, as well as her personal experiences, to raise awareness and equip women with the tools they need to heal and overcome the effects of their past traumatic experiences. Javon A. Frazier has been described as strong, inspiring, compassionate, and transparent. Affectionately known as your guiding light, Javon believes every person was created with unique gifts and abilities, or as she calls it, sparkle. And by going within, one can begin to discover those gifts in order to help heal themselves and others. A published author since 2014, was when her book came out, The Hidden Jewel. Javon's work has been featured on radio broadcasts and magazines, including Grace and Glory, a faith-based publication. Her most popular piece, Sexual Assault and the Silent Killer, was spotlighted on Hope for Women magazine website during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Javon is the founder and owner of the Hidden Jewel Wellness Boutique, in which I have been to at least twice. It is amazing, and we'll talk about that experience. It is a luxury, holistic wellness center designed to help women connect to their divine feminine energy. Despite her past, she managed to find her inner sparkle and rose above the odds. She believes that, like her, every woman can shine bright despite their dark past, and she dedicates herself to this cause. All right, everybody, without further ado, help me in welcoming Javon Frazier!
Hi. How are you?
Doing today?
Fantastic.
I think we've got the audio worked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I see you have on your teal glasses. I wore my teal shirt for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so that's awesome.
Ooh. Do you know that this is ironic? Because I usually wear these light pink colored, and I couldn't find them. I did not know, but wow, it's amazing how energy works.
Absolutely.
How energy transpires. So I see you're at the Hidden Jewel Wellness Boutique.
Absolutely, my favorite place.
I met Javon, it was last year, almost a year ago. I was there for a me, myself, and I vacation at the beach, and good friend of both of ours, Jessica Duravage Carriage, introduced me. Hey, Jessica, who I had on my podcast a few weeks ago. Anyway, she had introduced me to you and said, "Oh my God, that you should do this." And I'm like, I run towards life with open arms. I'm like, sign me up. Right. And I came for a yoni steam, and girl, let me tell you it was at the end of that week. I think it was on a Friday. So I'd been there since Sunday, and it was just like the last bit of whatever needed to explode off of me to help me. And I sat there with you, and talked about the experience. You love to sit there with, with the women who come in afterwards,
Absolutely.
and you give us the pad and piece of paper to write, and
Yep.
just the revelations and the emotion, and just wow, the dismantling of the blocks that happened for me. It was just overwhelming. And I have two Buddha statues in two places in my home
Yes.
ever since.
I
And it's
love
just
that. I
amazing.
love that.
Yes,
For the
yes,
waterfall that we have in the Yoni steam room. I love that.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes.
And we'll talk a little bit about what a yoni steam is in a little bit, but I really want to dive in for
Right.
the biggest reason why I brought you here, and it's what you do for people, women especially,
Yes.
who have suffered sexual trauma.
Yes.
So just start by telling me your story of what happened to you. I know it started like when you were 6.
Yeah. Yeah. My first introduction to sex, to sexuality, my body parts, all of that was through inappropriate touching. It was, I heard the statistics that you were reading, but one of the things that you did not mention that I would love to highlight is that most women who are sexually assaulted or abused, they know the person that does it, right? And so for me, the two abusers that I had were people that I knew. It was my youth pastor and my stepfather. So like the two men that I looked up to, that I loved, that I respected, because at that time my father was not active. They were, the two that were essentially taking my innocence, right? And so I always say that I've been, which I don't like saying, but it's my truth, that I've been raped and molested more times than one person should have to admit in their life, because really one time is enough. But for me, it was like an ongoing, like every night of my childhood, every like time that I went to, whether it was a youth service or, because we also like were part of this like youth ministry. So every time there was some sort of inappropriate touching. And so that happened with my youth pastor from the time that I was like, I don't know, 6 to 9 or 10 maybe. And then throughout that, of course, it was still happening in the home with my stepfather. And then with my stepfather, it was until I was maybe 16 was when he like really tried to like aggressively rape me. And, he got arrested and it was this whole thing. So most of my childhood was sexual trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did you, like the first time that happened, did you knew that, wait, something's not right.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be touching me like that.
Yeah.
Did you say something, or were you like, you're probably in shock?
I was, because it's interesting. I knew something wasn't right, but at the same time, because this was this man that I loved and that I revered, so he presented it in such a way that it was okay. We had our special hugs and our special moments that were just between him and I. And so although like it didn't feel good, because it was covered with what I like to call the love bomb of, I'm doing this because I love you, and you're my baby, then it was like this tug. And if I can be honest, even as an adult, when I see that person, there's still this like, because on the one hand, there's this person who caused so much pain, but then there was this person who, was the father figure and the youth pastor. And so it was really, really difficult, really, really difficult. And a lot of women, that's their experience, because it's like that love bomb is something that is used a lot, unfortunately.
So these two people in particular who had sexually molested you, I assure you, you were not the only one that they were perpetrating that. So you said that you still see this person. Did you ever come forward and speak about, obviously you did, because you've written books and so, yeah.
So it is so funny that you're asking me this. So my youth pastor, I still see. My stepfather has since transitioned. He's no longer with us, but prior to him, passing away, for years, we actually, because, he served his time, he went to prison, he went to therapy, we talked about it, and actually began like this healing process where because he was still like my stepdad, you know, because he is still my stepdad. We still had to see each other. When we saw each other, it wasn't awkward. Like, he still respected my space and respected the fact that we're not hugging, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. But I would still call him for recipes or whatever the case may be, like later on in life. So by the time that he transitioned, like, I was able to go to his service and, you know, be there and not feel a certain type of way with him directly. The other person, no. No. And it's interesting because, just a transparent moment, I love being transparent. I do recognize that I kind of still protect him even now in my adulthood, because the whole world knows about my stepfather, but his identity is still protected, which I don't know. That's
And you're talking about the youth pastor.
Yeah.
Youth pastor. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and wait, he went to jail, or your?
No, my stepfather.
Okay. So what happened? Why would the youth pastor not go to jail? Because he was most likely molesting other children.
He was, and there were charges, from my understanding, because I kind of separated myself from that, and my mother did as well. From my understanding, a lot of people were able to testify on his behalf that I must have been lying. I didn't know anything about a trial or anything during that time. This is the story that I received as an adult from, you know, a friend who knew both myself and him. That he's like, yeah, like, we all went to court, we had to testify, we had to write statements, like, we all knew you were lying. And I'm like, but I wasn't. So I didn't even get the opportunity to, like, whereas with, you know, my stepfather, I had to make a statement, I had to do all these things. I didn't get that opportunity with him. So although there were charges, they were all dropped because so many people were character witnesses.
Oh my God, Javon, have you ever seen the documentary? It's a Netflix documentary called Roll Red Roll. Wait, no, Red Roll Red.
No.
Red. Okay.
No.
It is about this girl who was hanging out with these teenage boys, and they were all drinking, and they went to one of the guys' houses, and and she was sloppy drunk, and 3 of them filmed themselves raping her.
Wow.
Sending the video to their friends. So there was clearly proof.
Right.
And the town, because these were football stars on the local, on that high school football team, the town, a lot of them, not everyone, a lot of them were slut shaming. What were you doing? What were you doing with those boys? What were you wearing? What, excuse me. You know, and that's like, instead of blaming the boys for what they did against this girl, they were slut shaming the fuck out of her.
Yeah.
And I am sorry, because we need to be infiltrating the mindfulness and the self-worth into boys and girls. Because hurt people, happy people don't.
Right.
So these boys, these insecure, narcissistic boys, perpetrated the lack of their own worth and value. They wanted someone else to feel that lack of worth and value, so they devalued her. She was nothing.
Right.
And that is where we as a society need to shift our paradigm.
Absolutely.
Because, like,
and it's interesting because, like, that was my experience with my stepfather, because after, like, he went to prison, you know, this another pastor came and, you know, called herself counseling, and I had on like this like strapless shirt or sleeveless shirt, and it had like a little V here, and I'm telling her the story of what happened, and she says, "Were you wearing something like what you have on today?" And I said, I don't care if I was butt ass naked, like, you know what I mean? So that is definitely something. I have 2 sons, and I always say I think it's interesting that the universe and God kind of like gave me boys. But I definitely tell my children, like, no means no. Like, even with each other, like, oh, he doesn't want to be touched right now, don't touch him. He doesn't want to be bothered right now, don't bother him. Because we absolutely have to teach our boys. Like, I see all these posts, you know, teach your daughters how not to, and teach it. No, we need to start teaching the sons too. Like,
no means no. You know, you've heard that saying, oh, no means yes. So I'll share with you one.
Yeah.
my stories of rape.
Mhm.
I was 18 years old, and I had been at a party, well, with a bunch of my friends. And there was this guy that I met there, and I'm going to refrain from obviously mentioning his name.
Right.
And him and I wound up, so the cops came and we were all underage. So we had to leave the party and we were all hiding in the woods. Well, him and I wound up, flirting, et cetera. And he was hot. I was attracted to him and nothing happened. But he's like, hey, you got my number. He wound up inviting me. There was another party like the next weekend. And he's like, so we wound up talking on the phone a few times. Well, the next weekend I was to go and drive over to his home and pick him up, and we were supposed to go to this party together. Well, I go over to his home, and it's about 11, because back then you didn't go to, well, I don't even think now sometimes you go to the parties late at night or bars late at night.
Yeah.
Well, I go over to his house, and he's like, I'm like, you ready to go? And he's like, oh, well, come on in for a few minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, and he's like, hey, you want a wine cooler? And I'm like, sure. So we're sitting there on the couch, and within like a minute or two, he's already, groping me and making out. And and then he starts to, motion like he's, going to take down his pants. I'm like, no, 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 no. No. He's like, oh, come on, come on, come on. I'm like, no, no. And he starts to get on top of me. He's a big guy and he's really muscular and he's on top of me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. It did not mean that I wasn't previously attracted to him or that I did not plan on a sexual experience with him in the future. But at that point in time, I said no, and I meant no.
Exactly.
And he moved my panties to the side and he penetrated me anyway.
Wow.
That is rape. And then I wound up telling a girl. So then I was like, we didn't even go to the party. I mean, I was 18. I'm stunned. It was my first experience with a rape encounter.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my girlfriend like the next day and telling her what this guy done. And she goes, oh my God, Stephanie, I wish you had told me you were going to go pick up so-and-so and bring him to the party. I would have told you don't, because she was in Myrtle Beach when he assaulted and raped in front of other people, a drunk, sloppy drunk girl. So yeah. And, and it's like, but again, what you hear is, well, how were you dressed?
Yes.
What were you wearing? What, no means yes.
Well, because y'all were already flirting previously, you must have wanted it.
Yeah. And exactly wanting it. So I want billions of dollars, but I'm not going to go rob a bank.
Absolutely.
And he robbed my bank. Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. First of all, thank you for sharing that with me, and for all of your viewers and listeners. I honor you in this moment, and absolutely, like, it's so unfortunate how many people have that experience. Mm-hmm. And because like maybe the girl, already has children or whatever, it's like there's something that you must have done, or there's something that should not be the way. Like, as a society, as a community, even with women, because slut shaming happens among women too. Absolutely. Like, we need to create this safe haven, because this really, I mean, I'm probably gonna like catch hell for this, but we have to look at ourselves. Like, and I know we're going to talk about toxic masculinity, but we also have to look at what are we doing as women, because who's raising these men?
Exactly.
Like, who are dating these men, who sisters, cousins, you know what I'm saying? And even that, like, it used to be a time where women would go out together and everybody went to the bathroom together. Everybody, checked on each other when they got home. We're not even doing that anymore. And so, like, yes, we need to absolutely talk about like what the men are doing and how to stop that. But as women, there should be such a code among women that these men can't.
Girl, you can say it.
Strongly. It was about to be But there should be such a strong code of sisterhood and support. And like, I see you, I honor you, I respect you, I believe you, that these men can't get away with it. Like, and that's what we need to do as women.
Hmm. And it's not even about teaching somebody what not to do. It's
Right.
about teaching them their own personal worth and value because, as I mentioned earlier, hurt people, happy people don't. And it's a common, I say this just about on every single podcast. And I've been thinking this for years that there needs to be a curriculum taught in every single school system around the entire world, an hour a day alongside spelling and math and PE and lunch that is about self-development, personal awareness, emotional intelligence, taking personal responsibility. Because if these boys, because all boys aren't rapists, no, God,
Right.
no,
Right.
no. And I mean, I have most of my life, I've had mostly guy friends,
Me too.
and none of them would think about hurting me or taking from me or perpetrating violence upon me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And I mean, so, but then there are those, because it is so prevalent, this toxic sexuality. A
Mhm.
lot of that stems from repression, which I believe repression equals perversion.
Mhm.
It is, and you mentioned a youth pastor. Just, in my experience in organized religion, I know I grew up Southern Baptist. It was don't
Yes.
don't have sex until you're married,
Yep.
period. There
Yep.
was no education around about our bodies other than, a boy has a penis and a girl has a vagina, and that, the biological stuff that we watched as 12-year-olds.
And even that
But
was
it's,
barely discussed.
what'd you say?
I said even that was barely discussed.
Right, exactly. There's no awareness around, hey, your body is doing this and you're having these feelings and these emotions. Let me help you understand, and let me help you turn to an inward respect
Yep.
of yourself, because when you respect yourself, you will respect others, which is why
Mhm.
all boys aren't rapists. But there are those, but it's prevalent enough.
Mhm.
And again, just in general, you know, self-aware children who live life knowing that they have the power
Mhm.
over their lives grow into adults who
Mhm.
are self-aware and are consciously creating their lives.
Yep. Yep.
So tell me about your. Oh, no, go ahead. You had something to say.
No, I just was gonna say that is a whole lot. Like, there's so much there that we could unpack, but I know that time is limited. But even like you said, like teaching people, women and men, like young girls and young boys, that it's okay to have these feelings. Like, there's such a taboo even around masturbation,
Oh, I
because
know.
I believe that if masturbation wasn't such a no type thing, like, all right, so you have these urges, you can't control yourself, like, go rub one out real quick. I'd rather you do
Right,
that than, attack someone else. You
right,
see what I'm saying?
right.
Like, so yeah, there was a lot there that we could unpack, but yeah. Whew.
I don't have anything till 7:30. I've got a sound journey at 7:30. We could talk all day, but I know you've got other things to do. But I want you to tell me about the book. So okay. So then you've experienced this sexual trauma.
Mhm.
Um, and then what was it, or who did you encounter, or what was the catalyst that then was like, whoa, I am worth more than this, and I want to empower others?
That's an interesting question. It was a series of things. So, after what I went through in high school with my stepdad and everything, there was like drugs, and there was, me giving it to whoever, however, whenever. I became a exotic dancer. I don't like to say stripper. And
Love it.
so, yes. And so I just was like on this like path of destruction, right? And there were two incidents that really like was like, you know what, Javon, this isn't cool. I had my son, and there was a moment where I felt like I was so toxic for my son that I actually gave him to my boss to raise.
Mhm.
It didn't last long because my mom, Carol, God bless her, she's now since passed on, but she was like, you need to go get your child. Like, whatever you're going through, you need to fix it because you need to be with your son. That was the one thing that was like, okay, wait a second. So then I started therapy and all that. So that kind of helped with like the mental, psychological issues that were happening as a result of what I went through. And then I met a pastor in North Carolina who I love so much, who he and his wife were just very understanding of where I was. They didn't try to like force religion. They didn't try to force me to be in a box. They allowed me to like speak my anger about, how I felt against pastors and everything. And so he helped me with the spiritual piece and realizing that it wasn't a God thing, because I hated God. Like, I was like, no. So I had my therapist helping me with the psychological piece, and then him kind of helping me with like the spiritual piece, and the rest just, between me and God's source energy, the universe, it all just worked out. So that's why even like with what I do, I don't just take from personal experiences or statistics or spirituality. Like, it's a beautiful blend, because that's really what saved my life.
That is awesome. So then you wrote your book, The Hidden Jewel.
Yes.
Yeah.
So The Hidden Jewel really started out as just me journaling. You mentioned I gave you the pen and paper. Like, I am a advocate for journaling, because it has to come up and out. Even if you don't share it, you need to get it out. So The Hidden Jewel for me was me just writing. I started by writing a letter to my stepfather. And that kind of started the conversation with him and I. And then I just was like, just writing, because there were issues with like my mom and just a whole other thing of like not being believed. And I think I was 2 weeks into this like journaling shadow work when like I heard God say like, this needs to be a book. And I was like, no. And then someone else came to me and was like, girl, I had a dream you wrote a book. And I was like, really? I was like, okay, all right, I get it. And so I think I finished that book in like less than a month.
Yeah.
And then that also birthed the Heavenly Jewels Alliance. And this whole movement around like I Shine, which is spirituality, healing, improvement, networking, empowerment. I feel like that's what we need in order to like heal and overcome. So that's kind of how we got to where we are. And then I wrote the second book, Discover Your Inner Sparkle and Let It Shine, which is possibly the most important piece of work I've ever created, I think, because it is a workbook and interactive guide to overcoming sexual abuse. And so I talk about like the psychological effects. I talk about the spiritual effects. I have stories from other survivors who have like overcome, and there's also a man in there as well. Because one of the things that I found out in talking and healing that piece with my stepfather is that he was actually molested. And it's like, yeah, maybe, you know what I mean? And so because they feel like their, sexuality was taken or possibly in question, and then they have to prove that they're a man. So then they go and, prey on someone else. The cycle of abuse is horrible. It's like, and people always ask me like, well, how are you able to forgive and have a conversation with him? Because I was able to see him not as a person who hurt me, but as a hurt person.
Thank you.
Said, like, hurt people. So when I understood his story, it made sense. Like, and I was able to forgive because you did the best you could with what you had. Like, nobody helped you. Nobody, was there to offer you counseling and support. And so, yeah.
And Javon, what an amazing sense of awareness, personal awareness, for you to be able to cultivate that forgiveness to someone who, as you said, was a hurt person.
Yeah.
And that there's so much shame around the very thing that brings us into existence. And it just is the most absurd, flabbergasting, preposterous, but it's just such an underlying prevalent concept. And I remember in my humanities class in college, my humanities teacher talking about, it's amazing how, and I think he was talking about from an organized religion perspective, that they're trying to teach you that which comes natural is bad.
Yeah.
That natural sense of, that's what we do to procreate. We wouldn't be here if it weren't, for sexual union. And I think, and that's why it makes sense, like, because I think that like repression equals perversion, because it's such a natural part of our biology. So if you think about like the Catholic priests, and so many of them are shut down. They're supposed to shut it down like it doesn't exist, never existed within their soul.
Yeah.
At 11, 12, 13 years old, when they're just becoming men and forming those hormones that cause them to, have those desires, and then you're supposed to shut that down. It's kind of like it creates a sickness because it's going to come out some way.
It is, absolutely. It like you said, the things that we don't address, it festers.
Resist.
It's almost as if, like, we talk about this, in spirituality, like, when you ignore your demons, they get bigger.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And they torment you in a way. And I'm not saying that sexuality is a demon. That's not what I'm saying
No,
at all.
no. I get you.
It's a beautiful thing. But I'm saying the idea that sexuality is something tainted and nasty, you try to ignore it and suppress it. And it's like, hey, you know what I mean? And so you find yourself hiding to watch porn or hiding to, why? Like, openly watch porn, openly love people, as long as there's a mutual consent. Like, I love me a good flick. Shucks.
Me forget too, girl. Me forget too. Okay, I got this. I was reading this book. I can't remember what the book was titled, but one of the stories that was told was like in relation to children and teaching them not to look at something, be around something, want something, and they used the analogy of a train. Something as simple as a train. Don't look at trains. You're not supposed to want to be a train. You're not supposed to want to be around a train. Stay away from trains. If you're telling your child that all their life, the first thing they do when they're out of your supervision, they're going to look for a train.
They are, because they're going to want to know what it is that they can't have, or what.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing too about, like, repressing sexuality. I was a PK, believe it or not. Like,
PK, when a PK is
preacher's kid.
Preacher's kid. Okay, yeah.
So both of my parents, mom and stepdad, who were ministers, grandparents are pastors, preachers, like the whole whatnot.
I think I knew that.
Ironically, yes. So I was raised in a box. Like, you couldn't dress a certain way. I wasn't even able to take sex ed in school. Like, everything that I know about my sexuality, I learned through trauma, through porn, and through experimenting on my own. You know what I mean? Like, nobody taught me, like, this is what this does. And I say that to say, like, so of course, when I got old enough to do my own thing, yes, of course, I had, like, trauma that kind of fueled me too, but I was wild. I, like, secretly, I knew, because I kept it quiet, but yeah. And it's like, I think had I been able to explore more, hang out more, it wouldn't have been such a, what do I need to do? What can I get into? Because it's like, oh, I've done that already. You know what I mean? And it's crazy.
Speaking to that, I wasn't a preacher's kid, but I might as well have been, because my parents are, I mean, they're still church, they're First Baptist or Southern Baptist, but that is a huge part of their life. And now I don't regret growing up like that. I had a lot of fun experiences with my youth group, with the children's choir, with the every other Wednesday night, church suppers.
Yes.
But my parents were so indoctrinated into that, and like I said, it wasn't, oh, well, let me teach you about your body and what's happening. It is, don't. You were to be a virgin on your wedding night. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. My mama and daddy were virgins on their wedding night. And that was just what was inundated, and the other kids that I hung out with, and the general consensus of the message every time I was in Sunday school or church. So, I mean, again, it's like, instead of teaching and empowering and helping people understand, or kids understand what's happening to and through their bodies, you can't, if you sequester it, it's going to come out in other ways.
Yes.
And that creates toxicity, that creates shame. And that shame is then what creates, oftentimes that perpetuation onto someone else.
And if you really think about it, I think what we're seeing collectively is a result of that. I mean, whether you are, no matter what your sexual orientation is, like, it seems as if everybody is just overly sexualized now.
Right.
And it's like, why? Because for years, whether it was organized religion, whether it was just cultural, for years, sex has been so taboo.
Exactly.
And so now you have a generation of people who have been like repressed for so long, no matter what age, really. Because my clients range from 13 on up, and I hear it all the time. Like whether they're empty nesters trying to find themselves, or I say women because that's who I talk to daily, but people are like kind of acting out, so to speak, because we've been so sheltered and repressed. Whereas, like you mentioned, if we were empowered to explore and to, it wouldn't seem so in your face, rah.
Yes, thank you. If we understand, have a great understanding of ourselves emotionally, spiritually, physically. But again, having these conversations that you and I are having, I mean, I'm addicted to these types of conversations. I'm addicted to watching podcasts where people are being inspired by whatever, the person being interviewed or what they're talking about, because that is going to shift the paradigm necessarily, as paradigms have been shifted since the beginning of time. We become more and more and more aware to where one day what we're talking about would be like such a distant memory. It'd be like, what? Like what? Like that? What? That really existed? And again, nothing's going to be perfect. Life isn't going to be, all rainbows and roses, but we will evolve and things will get better. But you have to believe that, because your mindset and your hearts that create what your eyes see. The mind controls what the eyes see. And if you think from a place of in a box or from limitation or that's not possible, then you're going to receive experiences or encounter experiences that are going to validate it over and over.
Right. Absolutely.
So, oh my God, this has been another empowered conversation. I know.
I'm having such a great time. Like anytime you get me back, I am here, because I'm like you. These are the type of conversations that I love to have, because I see it all the time. I look on TV and it's like ass and tits everywhere, which is cool. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's almost as if women are screaming to say, I'm sexually free. So now it's overly sexualized. It's like people are screaming to shout, I'm free to do whatever I want to do. So now I gotta publicly make out down the street. And it's like, no, like be sexual. Sex is a beautiful thing. Like masturbation, self-pleasure, it is all beautiful. But there's balance, right? There's duality in it all. Like you can't, okay, let me not say you can't. It isn't wise to be overly sexualized or underly sexualized. And I'm big on like the sacral chakra here at the Hidden Jewel Wellness Boutique. Like that's what we do, like womb wellness. And we always talk about having a blocked chakra or blocked sacral chakra, when you can't receive pleasure in sex or reach orgasm. But realizing that even if you're having too much sex, that's a problem too. If you're overly sexual, that's not being balanced either. So yeah, I can be on this topic all day, Stephanie.
I wanted to use an analogy that I have used since the mid-90s, and then I want to talk about your wellness boutique. Okay. So I remember when I first started listening to Howard Stern. I lived in Myrtle Beach. I was in college at Coastal, and I used to listen to him on the local radio station. That's when they were bleeping out all of his F-bombs. And I remember him and the type of people he was interviewing, and they were mostly, exotic dancers and porn stars. And the way in which he would, carry on with them, etc. And one could say, oh, wow, he's demeaning, he's degrading. But I saw through, there was something intuitively speaking to me that was like, no, he is ostracizing that which we make a big deal of. And you mentioned it like about a minute or two ago. It's like, ooh, look at the hot fudge sundae. You want it. You want it. Ooh, you want it. Sexualizing women is just tits and ass. But oh, shame, shame, shame. Right. Shame, shame. So you're perpetuating or infiltrating a dichotomy in what you're trying to create. So, and I remember on a couple different occasions where Howard Stern, he would be talking about something completely different. And there was this one time where this was when President Clinton was president, and Chelsea was right around 22 years old, and somebody up in the house, or I don't, don't quote me on that, but somebody made a comment about Chelsea not being attractive. And Howard, I'm gonna cry. Howard went the fuck off. He said, that's somebody's kid. You don't, in your position, talk about somebody's kid. And people were or calling in like, oh, what about these 22-year-olds that you have on your show that you're, being sexual and saying He's like, they know what they're getting onto. They know getting into what my show is about. And, and it's like he has evolved so much. Like I could on a couple other occasions where he would share similar sentiments, and you saw his heart. You saw his heart. So, but anyway, but now I want to talk about your hidden jewel wellness boutique. Tell everybody. I've done a yoni steam. I've been there twice.
Yes.
Both times were amazing. So tell everybody about that.
Okay, so the Hidden Jewel Wellness Boutique, we are designed to help women connect to their divine feminine energy. We do that by focusing on what I feel are the three main pillars of wellness, which is spiritual wellness, mental wellness, and physical wellness. Y'all know I like to tie it all in. And so we have yoni steaming. We just introduced sound healing, which I'm excited about. We have our meditation corner. And then we have like products, herbs and teas and things like that to kind of help you from the inside out. A lot of what I do is very intimate. Like it's interesting because women come in for a yoni steam just because they want to try it. And then the next thing you know, we're having like a counseling session or we're having like a healing session. And so I absolutely, yes, I absolutely love it because I feel like as much as sexual trauma, a lot of my clients who come in the doors are victims and survivors of sexual trauma of some sort. And I feel like it's so prevalent, but we don't talk about it. So what I do here, like I get you in the door, I get you comfortable, I offer you tea, like you have a satin robe, you're just like, you're relaxed, you're in a spa-like setting. And the next thing you know, because you're sitting there with no phones, because there are no phones allowed, there's no one else, there's music, there's candles, there's water, there's like all of the earth elements in this one space. And something happens where whatever it is that you've been, masking, because that's what women do. We're great at like just going and getting shit done and, wearing all the hats and being all the things. But in that room, you have no choice but to just be. And so emotions come up and we just navigate it together. And I really love what I do. And I'm really grateful that my experiences were not in vain. I often, because, as an effect of the sexual abuse, I talked about the stripping and all that stuff, but I was addicted to drugs. Like I didn't have to go to rehab, I just quit. You know what I mean? Like I really feel in my heart of hearts that I was graced to experience what I did to do what I'm doing now.
Absolutely.
And so, and I know it sounds cliche, like, oh, everything happens for a reason, but I really, truly believe that because there are people who have gone through less and are not here. And this is not to, to brag or to put myself on a pedestal, but it's just to say that, like,
put yourself on a pedestal, girl. That's where you belong.
It's just to say that I really, truly, like, this is what I do. Like, helping women heal, that is my life.
Yeah.
That is what the fuck I do. You know what I mean? And like, so I'm grateful for this space. I mean, it's a beautiful space. Y'all see it? It's beautiful.
Girl, it is. And it's a beautiful experience.
Thank you. More importantly, the work that we do here is really, really life-changing. I've heard so many stories similar to yours where they didn't publicly come out and say, I've dealt with sexual trauma or sexual abuse until after they give me their review. And so it's just like, wow, and I feel like through the work that we do here at the Hidden Jewel, like when a woman heals their womb, they heal the world. I feel that and believe that in my heart, because women, we are, the ones who really like create the life and give life, and we nurture and all that. And we're the ones raising the children and raising the men and loving the men and the women and whoever. So when we heal ourselves, it really does have a ripple effect. So my goal, I'm trying to heal millions of people while making millions of dollars.
Hell yeah, girl. That's not somebody. So Facebook user, I'm right there with you, because that's my existence as well.
Yes.
Facebook user, I'm not sure who it is. They're probably watching through the group. Deepa, Rick, and Licious, and you, but they said yes. Thank you for joining. I can see people joining from my personal page only, and if they comment, it comes in just as a Facebook user from the group. But I am so grateful for you, Javon, and everything that you're doing through yourself for the world.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing, guys. If you live in Myrtle Beach, or if you're taking a trip to Myrtle Beach, women, not guys, but I think that there's something separate for men, and I saw it on Zac Efron's documentary, but that's a whole nother subject.
Here's the thing. I want to speak to that, because I am getting a lot of men who are like wanting to come steam, and I'm just like, and they want to experience, and this is what I want to say too. Because I am in a relationship with a woman, right? And so like, I love women, but I also love men. Like, I have 2 sons. I advocate for men all the time. There is a shift happening. Men are wanting to heal.
Yes.
Men are wanting to tap into their emotions. And so like, I know for years, centuries even, like, there's been so much shit between men and women that it's like, but I promise you that underneath all of, and this isn't everybody, now there are some toxic men that just need to stay where the fuck they are.
You stay over there.
Go over there. But underneath that tough exterior, there are some men who they don't know where to start. They don't know how to express what they're feeling. And so women, like, open yourselves up to having those conversations. Don't automatically think that a man having a conversation with you is trying to hit on you. That's something that I had to learn. Like, not all men want to get close to you for sexual reasons. Some men, because women have been evolving and working on ourselves, and men have been in their little caves watching their games and drinking their beer, and they're recognizing. I was dating a guy years ago, and Super Bowl Sunday, I went to this empowerment event, and he was like, that's why women are running shit. He was like, because y'all out there working on yourselves, and we home watching football and drinking beer. And so I say all that to say that, like, they're seeing the shift in women.
Right.
So let's not shut ourselves off to helping them.
Absolutely.
And I say that as a woman who is in love with a woman, but I love men so fucking much.
Right. Me
a lot
too.
of men come to me and they're like, so what's for us? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a brother or a fella out there somewhere who like wants to partner. I don't know. Maybe it's for me to do. I don't know. But a lot of men are asking for what we are doing here at the Hidden Jewel Wellness Boutique. And I'm just like,
if we're going to heal the world, it is a collective experience.
Yes, absolutely.
And there is a lot of, first and second chakra trauma, in both men and women. Have you ever read the book When God Was a Woman?
No, but that sounds intriguing.
Oh, girl. When God Was a Woman. And it talks about how, spirituality was, initially was rooted in the divine feminine. And it was about song and dance and play and healthy sexuality. And, yeah, it's a very incredible book, When God Was a Woman. And we are, that's the shift of the paradigm. We're shifting back to that paradigm of, because in all people is divine masculine and divine feminine. We need our masculine energy. We are all of, divine masculine and divine feminine. But In order to heal ourselves and the world, we have to acknowledge both
Yes.
in our lives. So,
Absolutely. Oh my God. Oh, we have to come back because that is so
I'd love
true.
to have you back.
Thank you. I'd love to be back. That is definitely something on my podcast. I did an episode about that, about how we need both the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and that we both, like men and women, have both within us.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of what we feed and what we,
Mm-hmm.
tune in and tune out. You know what I'm saying? Because, and even in saying that, that's helping me kind of shift my mind about what we're doing here, because I do say helping you connect to your divine feminine, but men need to connect to their divine feminine too. So maybe I need to open it up.
Yeah. Well, I saw Zac Efron has an incredible documentary called Down to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Netflix, and him and this guy Dan Olian, who has he's a vegan. He has a podcast about veganism. They're traveling the world and visiting areas of the world that have a more like healthier, planet sustainable way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And they are in, I can't remember where they are, but they get naked and they're in this little hut, and there's this big huge pot, and all these leaves are boiling, and it's steaming their so it is available for, because again, that root chakra and that sacral is where a lot of, most people hold, blocked energy.
Yeah. And you know what? That's something too that I think we need to discuss more in the spiritual world, because everyone is all about like going higher, and we want to meditate, and we need to pay more attention, like you said, to the first and second chakra, because everybody's up here, but nobody's really dealing with this, what is at the core of who we are. And it's like you can't skip the steps. I think you want so badly to evolve, and I meditate for hours and I do all that, but where's that shadow work? How are you rooted and grounded? You know what I mean?
And you mentioned something earlier about understanding and sitting with all of our emotions, even those ones that we don't like, with anger, sadness, depression. And it's really odd, since like Sunday, I've been experiencing just some anger for no good reason whatsoever.
You're not the only one.
And it's like, but I'm aware enough that I'm like, okay, Stephanie, this is coming up and being expressed. Like a couple of nights ago, I was trying to watch something, and the windows were open because it's nice out, and there was this car with this loud muffler, and I was like, what the fuck? But and I've noticed this about myself over the past few days. I'm like, you're purging something that needs to be purged in order to bring balance, and sometimes that's intense emotions that we don't enjoy having.
Yes.
So.
And it's important to pay attention to that. Like, everything is not going to always be love and light. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sit with it all, because that's who we are. Like, yes, we are spiritual beings, but we're having a human experience with human emotions, going through human shit. That is not always love and light.
Nope.
I am the guiding light, but Javon? And it's like, how do we learn from that? In the book Discover Your Inner Sparkle, I talk about how anger is only beneficial if it fuels your productivity. If you're learning from it, if you're assessing it and growing from it, then absolutely it's okay to be angry. But if you're just around here angry and yelling and knocking shit over for no reason, then that's not helping you or anybody else.
Absolutely. And I love that. So I've got links to in the show notes to how. I don't think I have one to. Is that on Amazon, your book? How can people get hold?
Yes. So they can order off of Amazon or on the Hidden Jewel website, which is the www.hiddenjewelboutique.com.
Okay. I've got those links, and I'll post them in comments.
Okay.
So, well, Javon, it has been just a glee-ridden, splendid time speaking with you today.
I have enjoyed myself so much. Thank you.
And I hope to see you Sunday.
Yes.
So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and those who commented and engaged. We will be sharing the links and comments on how to get, go to her Hidden Jewel Boutique.
Yes.
Get yourself a yoni steam and have a session with Javon. It is life transformative. And buy her book, buy her workbook. If you or anybody you know
Yes.
has endured sexual trauma.
And if I may,
yes,
we are having an in-person tea ceremony where we are talking about all things sexual trauma in the womb. That is going to be April 24th. That's a Saturday here at 3:00. So, and it's donation based. So whatever you can afford to give, just come on out and let's get some herbal tea in our system so we can heal from the inside out. And we're also going to talk about sexual trauma.
Is there a link that people can register?
Yes, there is a link to register. I will share that with you.
Please. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, guys, thank you again so much for watching Empowered Conversations. Remember to tune in tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. For food therapy, where Javon and I are having a very special guest come on with us, a good friend of ours named Kim Bond, and we're all going to be making a different version of a burger, and it's going to be splendid. So, Javon, you stay right here. I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.